Our guest is Mr. Toivo Klaar, the European Union's special envoy for the South Caucasus. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, before turning to the main topic of our interview, the Karabakh conflict, I would like to ask about internal developments. This time your visit coincided with the most violent day of the oppositional protest in Yerevan. Have you had a chance to meet with the parties, and what's your message to them?
Well, I have not, and this is really a matter also that our delegation here, our embassy here is of course observing very closely. The main message, of course, is that rule of law and abiding by principles of peaceful expressions of opinion is something that is important for the European Union, and I think that is important for Armenia and for Armenian society.
You have met with the Prime Minister of Armenia, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other officials. The main agenda, according to the official statements, were the regional developments. What message do you take from Yerevan?
The message I take is that the meeting that the leaders had in Brussels a few weeks ago delivered some concrete outcomes, and that there has been some follow-up to these discussions. We had the first meeting of the border commissions. We now had a meeting in Moscow of the deputy prime ministers to discuss the opening of communication links, which was something that the leaders discussed in broad outlines in Brussels. And so we are very much encouraged, and I think that is also a message that I heard here from the leaders, from the Armenian leadership, that there is some genuine follow-up to the Brussels meeting, and whether that follow-up then happens in Brussels, whether that follow-up happens on the bilateral border between Armenia and Azerbaijan, or whether that follow-up happens in the form of the trilateral working group of the deputy prime ministers, all of that is good, and that is important.
And what can you say about the messages received from Baku, maybe in general? Well,
again, I think the feedback that we have received from Baku as well is that the assessment of the Brussels meeting was positive, and also the assessment of the follow-up to the Brussels meeting has been positive. So there is a bit of positive momentum, and I think that is important to build on that.
It was announced that the leaders will meet, if I'm not mistaken, in July or August. Is it still in the plan?
Well, I think that is certainly still in the plan. That was something that the leaders discussed. It was not something that I discussed specifically with Prime Minister Pashinyan here today. I understand that he has had a conversation about that with President Michel, but that is really for the leaders to agree, and of course there is still some time to fix the precise date.
The most controversial issue that remains is the future or maybe final status of the Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenia still talks about the Minsk group and the future negotiation, while Aliyev says that the question is closed, Minsk group can be dismissed. What's the EU approach to this?
Well, I think our approach above all is to try to push the process forward. We don't have a copyright. The EU doesn't claim to have a copyright to anything. What we are interested in is seeing progress, and is in supporting progress. And that is, I believe, what President Michel has been able to achieve through his 3 meetings with the leaders, and through also his meeting with President Macron, with President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan. And that is what we want to do. So there are other formats. As I said, there have been meetings between Prime Minister Pashinyan, President Aliyev, and President Putin. There have been now on Friday there was a meeting in Moscow of the deputy prime ministers of Russia, of Azerbaijan and Armenia. That is perfect. That is very good if it takes us forward in the right direction. So the European Union's sole and only interest is to help the process along and to help achieve a sustainable and comprehensive settlement here.
Yes, but let me remind that President Michel talked only about the rights of the ethnic Armenian of Karabakh without mentioning anything about the future status, which was raised some concerns in Armenia and in Nagorno-Karabakh in Stepanakert.
I think in the end the question is that this has to be a comprehensive settlement, and we all know how the conflict started, and the conflict has to come to a complete closure. And the fact that President Michel he didn't mention many things in his statement. I mean, this was not a statement that went through all the issues that have to be addressed. But the fact is that we have always emphasized that a comprehensive settlement to the conflict is necessary, and that is what we are working towards.
And he stressed that for lasting and equitable peace there should be a discussion on all core issues by all stakeholders. Does this also mean the participation of Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, and if yes, in which way?
I think ultimately the Armenians in Karabakh are, of course, a party that has to be part of the solution. And whatever way that happens, but it is very clear that there are many people living in Karabakh who have a fundamental interest in how the outcome of or a comprehensive settlement is shaped. And I cannot see how we can arrive at such a settlement without a process in which these people's opinions and views are taken into account.
Mr. Klaar, despite the enormous EU efforts, the situation on the Armenia-Azeri border remains tense, and both parties continue to accuse each other for the escalation. In this regard, what can the newly established Security Committee do?
Well, I think there are a number of issues along the border and along a number of questions that have to be resolved. And in some parts the delimitation of the border will be easy. I think there is no question about where the line runs. In some parts there will be more questions to be discussed, and that is exactly what this meeting of the delimitation commissions and the subsequent meetings of the delimitation commissions have to achieve. And the fact that these delimitation commissions are composed of a very broad range of representatives from various agencies, Foreign Ministry, Defense Ministry, Security Services, that shows that both sides, both Azerbaijan and Armenia, are serious in tackling the comprehensive sort of specter of issues that are there on the problems, on the border. It's not just a technical issue, it is also a political issue, it is a security issue, and the commissions are well equipped to discuss all of them. So I am hopeful that there is a serious commitment from Baku and from Yerevan to reach a good settlement here. But this will take time.
After yesterday's meeting of the deputy prime ministers in Moscow that you mentioned, it was reported that Yerevan and Baku brought closer the approaches to the issues related to the roads. Did you have a chance to hear about the details in Yerevan here?
Not yet, not yet. I actually asked about that, but I understand that Deputy Prime Minister Grigoryan is only coming back to Yerevan tomorrow, so that will take a bit of time to understand the precise outcomes of the meeting, but the initial messages are of course positive.
According to the November 9th agreement, in case of deblocking the roads, the border guard service of the Russian security service shall be responsible for overseeing the transport connection between the western region of Azerbaijan and the Nakhichevan. Is this still the plan that the parties are discussing now?
Well, I think, as I said, I don't know exactly what the Deputy Prime Ministers discussed yesterday, but ultimately it is up to Yerevan and Baku, up to Armenia and Azerbaijan to decide how exactly this is arranged. And of course, there is the November 9th agreement, and I'm sure both Baku and Yerevan are also conscious of that. So we will see how exactly it will work out, but again, I leave it up to Yerevan and Baku.
By the way, they say that there is some competition between Russia and Brussels, European Union.
Yes, and I saw that there was even an article in radio on your website and on your radio about this, and some EU official had said that that this is a competition and the EU is somehow grabbing the limelight. Frankly speaking, and I can speak here on behalf of President Michel, but also of course on my own behalf, that this has never been the intention of the European Union. The European Union is not engaged in any kind of competition here. We are solely interested in trying to help a process along. If what we are doing, through President Michel's personal engagement, what I have been able to achieve, if that is helpful, then we are very happy. If there are other actors who are able to help things along, then we are very happy. And we know that the Russian Federation has invested quite a bit in different meetings, and most recently in the Deputy Prime Minister's meeting. So from our perspective, there is most definitely no competition. There is no interest in any competition. We are simply interested in a peaceful and prosperous South Caucasus, which we see as a value in and of itself, because you are a neighbor, close neighbor to the European Union, and if things are sorted out here, if there's peace here, if there are transport connections are opened here, that brings more prosperity and stability, and that is good for the European Union.
But on the other hand, Russia accused the European Union for trying to somehow wedge into the implementation of Armenian and Azerbaijani agreements brokered by Moscow earlier. Does the European Union or the parties feel a pressure from Moscow, and could it be possible that at some point the European Union and Russia will start a dialogue over Caucasus?
Well, first of all, I don't really believe that there is a need for dialogue over the Caucasus, because from the EU's perspective, this is not about us wanting to have any kind of influence or special privileges here
in this region.
But I mean, the fact is, of course, that in the past I have had contacts with Russian senior officials, President Michel has in the past, and in the fairly recent past, had conversations with President Putin. So we are wholly transparent. We have been wholly transparent in whatever we are doing, and we don't see this in any way as being a competition or trying to somehow wedge ourselves in. Again, we have the only interest of trying to help resolve this conflict and trying to provide our good offices. And if these good offices are deemed to be useful, then we are very happy. And we are likewise happy if there are other actors who are also willing and able to provide such good offices.
Do you see an opportunity to expand the Russian peacekeeping mission? I mean, is the European Union ready to send peacekeepers to Nagorno Karabakh or to support enhancing the security there somehow?
Well, I think that is early days to discuss this. I think, frankly, we have right now we have the mandate of the Russian peacekeeping mission is for another 3 years. I would hope that within that time we will actually be able to reach an agreement, a comprehensive deal here. And in that context, the situation will have changed completely. So I think let's not engage in such speculation, but rather express our joint hope that actually within the next 3 years we can have a comprehensive solution to the conflict.
And my last question, is there an international example for that can be taken as a model for the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict future?
Well, I think there's a lot of examples in the world, but for each situation there are examples, but none of these examples will fit perfectly because every situation is different. There are different historical. There's a different historical background. There are different geographical conditions. So I think that there's a lot of international examples that exist, but ultimately what is most important is the political will by the leaders on both sides to look for a solution and to find that solution, and then to draw on examples from here, there, and third places to finalize the outcome. But I think what is fundamentally needed is that political will.
Thank you once again, and have a nice trip.
Thank you.
Let me remind, our guest was Mr. Toivo Klaar, the European Union's Special Envoy for the South Caucasus.